something in my room.
The scream was shrill, panicked, high-pitched, and it came from 6-year-old Lucas Morell just after 2:30 a.m. Daniel, a single father living in suburban Jacksonville, jolted awake, heart racing. He barely had time to process the words before. He heard something worse, a low growl, wet, guttural, and the crash of something heavy knocking over a chair. When he swung the door open, he didn't find a monster under Lucas's bed. He found it on the bed, a massive crocodile covered in slime and dark green scales had dragged half its body up onto the mattress. Its jaws were clamped around Lucas's tiny torso. Blood soaked the Spider-Man sheets. The boy was screaming, kicking, until he wasn't. Daniel roared, launching himself across the room with nothing but instinct. He grabbed a lamp, slamming it into the croc's side. It didn't budge. He screamed for help. His hands were covered in blood as he tried prying its jaws apart. But it was no use. The predator was locked in. His other son, 10-year-old Ethan, stood frozen in the hallway, watching the horror unfold. Within minutes, sirens wailed. Animal control arrived with tranquilizers, but it was already too late. Lucas was gone, and the crocodile Daniel had raised like family had vanished into the shadows, leaving only blood, silence, and the sharp metallic stench of death. If you're already holding your breath, hit subscribe to Animal Story, where we bring you the most gripping, real-life tales of animals, humans, and the blurry line between love and danger. Don't forget to like and hit the bell. This story is just getting started. But to understand how we got here, how a loving father, a quiet neighborhood, and a backyard pet turned into national headlines, we have to go back. Because the truth is, this didn't happen overnight. There were signs. There were warnings. There were moments when people said, "Is this really safe?" And every time Daniel said the same thing. "He's part of the family. He knows me." Let's rewind to 6 months earlier, a time when the Morell household was just another home with toys in the yard, laughter in the air, and something very large swimming in the pool out back. That something was Buddy, a crocodile Daniel had rescued from a reptile rehab facility 3 years earlier. Back then, Buddy had fit in a shoebox. Now he stretched nearly 9 feet from nose to tail. Daniel, a high school biology teacher, had a passion for wildlife. After losing his wife to cancer, animals became his therapy. He turned his grief into purpose, volunteering at shelters, giving talks at schools, teaching his sons to love nature. He built Buddy his own pool enclosure, posted videos online. My dad's pet croc went viral. People in the neighborhood stopped by just to catch a glimpse. Some were amazed. Others were worried. "Come on," Daniel would laugh. "I'm a professional. He's safer than most people's." Dogs! He had a point, at least at first. Buddy seemed calm, almost sluggish. He floated, ate chicken thighs from tongs, and even let Lucas toss floating toys into the water. But nature doesn't ask for permission. It waits. And as Buddy grew, so did something else. Unpredictability, unease, silence before the snap, and all it took was one night, one unlocked door, one lapse in judgment, to destroy a family forever. Stay with us. The warning signs, the haunting footage, the public outrage, it's all coming in part 2. And trust me, it gets worse. Because what Buddy did wasn't an accident. It was instinct. And instinct doesn't care if you raised it like a child. Daniel Morell wasn't a reckless man. If anything, he was the opposite. Methodical, well-read, a science teacher who color-coded his lesson plans and packed his kids' lunches with little sticky notes that read, "You got this!" or "I'm proud of you." After his wife Julia died from ovarian cancer 4 years earlier, Daniel devoted every ounce of himself to raising their 2 boys, Ethan and Lucas. He didn't date. He didn't go out. His world became the classroom. The kitchen, the backyard, and his sons. That's where Buddy came in. Daniel first met the baby Crocodile while volunteering at a local reptile rescue in Gainesville. Buddy had been found half dead in a flooded storm drain after Hurricane Elsa. The shelter was overrun, underfunded, and prepping to euthanize several reptiles that had little chance of recovery. Daniel looked into the baby Croc's dark eyes, glassy, unblinking, and something tugged at him. Maybe it was the helplessness. Maybe it was the part of him that had already lost so much. Whatever it was, he brought Buddy home. At first, he kept the Croc in a reinforced tank in the garage. He researched tirelessly, consulted herpetologists, watched every documentary he could find. When Buddy grew too large, Daniel installed a custom-made pool enclosure in the backyard, fenced, filtered, temperature-controlled. He didn't just raise Buddy, he studied him. Ethan loved filming short videos of his dad feeding the Croc or explaining crocodile behavior in fun fact style. The videos caught on. A YouTube channel, Reptile Dad, was born. It hit 40,000 subscribers in just 6 months. In every clip, Daniel repeated the same mantra. He's not a pet, he's a responsibility, but he's part of this family now. People, in the comments, called it inspirational. Some called it dangerous. But in their home, Buddy became something between a curiosity and a family mascot. Lucas would wave at him every morning before school. "Bye, Buddy." He'd shout from the back door like the Croc was a golden retriever. Neighbors were split. Some thought it was fascinating. Others, particularly the McLeans next door, weren't thrilled. "It's not about whether he means well," Mr. McLean once told a reporter. "It's about whether that thing has teeth." Daniel didn't ignore the criticism, but he believed he had it under control. He added extra fencing, reinforced the pool barriers, installed cameras with motion alerts. He kept a chart in the kitchen tracking Buddy's feedings and behavior. And truthfully, there were no real problems, at least not at first. But even wild things that are raised in comfort don't forget what they are. And as Buddy grew, things began to change. He got quieter, less responsive. He'd spend hours floating motionless, his eyes just above the waterline, watching. Sometimes he didn't eat for days. Sometimes he lunged at the fence when squirrels or birds got too close. Daniel chalked it up to seasonal behavior or maturity. "It's just a phase," he told Ethan one afternoon. "He's still getting used to his size, like a teenage boy with 2 long legs." Still, he started spending more time outside, sitting by the pool and watching Buddy. He spoke to him gently, tried re-establishing routines. He believed deeply that their bond was still intact. What he didn't know, what he couldn't have known, was that the line between animal and companion had already been crossed. There was one moment, caught on a home security camera just 2 weeks before the tragedy, that haunts investigators to this day. In the video, Lucas runs outside with a small toy dinosaur. He holds it up to the fence and says, "Look, Buddy, he's your friend." Buddy doesn't move for nearly 30 seconds. Then he suddenly rushes the fence. His snout slams against the mesh hard enough to shake the camera. Lucas falls back, screaming. Daniel rushed out seconds later and calmed everything down, but that video never made it to the YouTube channel. "It's fine," he told his sister during a phone call. "He's just being territorial." What he didn't say, what he might not have admitted even to himself, was that part of him wasn't sure anymore. But by then, the views were growing, the family routine had adjusted, and the Croc had become a permanent fixture in their lives. He was part of the family, until the night he wasn't. The first real sign that something was wrong came on a Sunday afternoon. Ethan had been kicking his soccer ball around the backyard, something he'd done dozens of times. The ball rolled toward the pool enclosure and gently bumped the mesh fencing. Buddy, who had been basking motionless on the cement edge, didn't even blink until Ethan approached. Then, without warning, the crocodile lunged. His massive body slammed against the enclosure with a sickening thud. The boy screamed and bolted for the house. By the time Daniel came running out, Buddy was already back in the water, gliding slowly like nothing had happened. Daniel checked the fencing. No damage, no break, no real harm done. But Ethan was pale and shaking. I thought he was gonna eat. Me? Dad? Daniel gave him a side hug, trying to steady his own nerves. Buddy's just startled. He's been a little edgy lately. It's probably the heat. But deep down, Daniel knew it wasn't the heat. That week, Buddy refused to eat for 4 straight days. Then, without explanation, he tore apart his meal with a frenzy Daniel hadn't seen in years, snapping through bone like twigs. His jaws crushed frozen chicken legs in seconds, flinging bits of meat against the enclosure walls. It was primal, violent, unsettling. Daniel called Dr. Pike, a reptile vet he trusted. "How big is he now?" she asked. "Just over 9 feet, maybe 160 pounds. There was a pause on the line. "Dan, at that size, he's not a pet. I don't care how well you raised him. That croc is a wild animal with killer instincts. I really think it's time to consider rehoming him to a sanctuary." Daniel bristled. "You don't know him like I do. And he doesn't know you the way you think," she said gently. "You've given him comfort, but not control. One day, someone's gonna open the wrong door." Daniel hung up without responding. That night, he sat on the patio for hours, staring at Buddy. The crocodile floated still, his eyes just above the water. Watching. The next warning came from technology. Daniel's backyard motion sensor had been set to ping his phone whenever there was movement in the pool area after dark. Most of the time, it was nothing. Raccoons, squirrels, wind-blown debris. But around 3:12 a.m. one Wednesday, he got a ping. Then another, then another. He opened the live camera feed. Buddy was pacing, not swimming, not resting, pacing, back and forth, along the pool's edge, like a prisoner testing the walls. He moved with eerie purpose. Daniel watched, transfixed, for nearly 15 minutes before the crocodile slid back into the water and disappeared beneath the surface. He saved the footage, unsure what to make of it. When he showed it to Ethan the next morning, his son said, something that chilled him. "He's thinking." "What do you mean?" "Like, he's planning something." Daniel laughed it off. But the unease didn't fade. A week before the attack, things escalated again. Lucas had left the back door slightly ajar after feeding their cat. Daniel didn't notice until later that evening. When he checked the enclosure, everything seemed fine, until he found a deep scratch in the concrete barrier just outside the mesh. Not a crack. Not a scrape. A deliberate, forceful gouge, like something heavy had dragged claws across the concrete. Still, he convinced himself it could have been the landscapers or a fallen tool, or maybe he'd just never noticed it before. That was the moment. That was the one. The moment he should have locked the doors every hour. Should have called the sanctuary. Should have said goodbye. But instead, Daniel whispered to himself the same lie he'd always used when the fear crept in. He knows us. He would never hurt them. And so life went on. Lucas ran around the yard in superhero pajamas. Ethan edited another YouTube short. Daniel updated Buddy's feeding chart. And the crocodile waited, because wild animals don't give warnings with words. They give them with silence, stillness, and eyes that never stop watching. It was a Saturday night, one of those humid Florida evenings where the air feels like soup and the cicadas don't shut up. Daniel had spent the day grading papers. On the patio while Ethan and Lucas played inside, Buddy had been calm, barely moving, floating at the far end of the pool like a log. The boys came out to wave goodnight to him, like they always did. "Night, Buddy," Lucas said, holding up his little dinosaur plush like it was a ritual. The crocodile didn't move, not even a blink. Daniel didn't know it then, but that stillness wasn't peace. It was calculation. That night, everything was normal. Ethan was up late reading. Lucas was in bed early, curled up under his superhero blanket. Daniel double-checked the windows, made sure the pool gate was latched, and set the alarm system. But he missed one thing: the sliding door. He always locked it. Always. Except that night, after letting the cat out and answering a work email, he forgot. 3:33 a.m. The motion sensor pinged. Daniel, half asleep, glanced at his phone. "Backyard movement detected." "Raccoon," he mumbled and rolled over. 3:35 a.m. A sound, not loud, more like dragging. Slow, wet, steady, like rubber, sliding over tile. Then a thump. Then a scream. "Daddy! There's something in my room!" Daniel flew out of bed barefoot, his heart hammering. The hallway light was off. He reached for the door handle and pushed it open, and froze. Lucas's room was chaos. Sheets tangled, toy dinosaurs scattered, a lamp knocked over, and in the middle of it, Buddy, half his body on the floor, the other half twisted up onto the bed. His jaws were locked around Lucas's side. Blood soaked the mattress, smeared down the wall. Lucas thrashed, screaming, but the sound was strangled, gurgled. "No!" Daniel shouted, grabbing the nearest thing he could, a chair. He slammed it down on the croc's back once, twice, 3 times. Nothing. Ethan ran into the hallway, froze, then screamed. Daniel yelled at him to call 911. The boy stumbled back, fumbling for the phone. Buddy shifted, dragging Lucas toward the door. His powerful tail slammed into the wall, cracking the drywall. Daniel grabbed a lamp and hurled it at the reptile's face. For a second, just a second, Buddy let go. Lucas collapsed, whimpering. Daniel lunged to pull him away, but it wasn't over. Buddy snapped again, this time at Daniel. The man barely dodged it. Blood now smeared across Daniel's forearms from holding his son. The police arrived 7 minutes later. Animal control came, with tranquilizers. But by the time they got inside, Lucas was unresponsive. EMTs worked frantically, pumping oxygen, applying pressure. Daniel was sobbing, hands trembling, shirt soaked in blood. "Please, please save him. He's just a kid." They carried Lucas out on a stretcher, his little hand dangling over the side, fingers stained red. Buddy, now back in the living room, hissed when approached. There was no hesitation. 2 gunshots, one to the head, one to the spine. The crocodile's body fell still. Daniel dropped to his knees. Lucas was pronounced dead at the hospital at 3:12 a.m. He had bite wounds to the chest and neck. Massive blood loss. He never woke up. That same morning, a viral video spread on social media. A neighbor had caught the flashing lights, the stretcher, the blood. Rumors swirled before the sun even came up. By Sunday afternoon, the Morell house was on every major news network. Pet crocodile kills Florida boy in horrific attack. It was no longer a backyard science project. It was a crime scene. Daniel sat alone in the ER waiting room, blood under his fingernails, staring at his shoes. "I raised him," he kept whispering. "I raised him. He knew us." But wild doesn't mean tame. And sometimes, love isn't enough. By the time the sun rose over Jacksonville, the street outside the Morell home was swarming. Yellow police tape fluttered in the breeze. News vans lined the curb. Reporters huddled behind tripods rehearsing their stand-ups. Neighbors stood in stunned silence on their porches, clutching coffee mugs like anchors in a storm. The words crocodile, child, and death hit social media like wildfire. Within hours, the hashtags started trending. Justice for Lucas, sue, ban exotic pets. He was just a 6-year-old at St. Joseph's Hospital. Daniel Morell sat in the family waiting room, still wearing the blood-stained T-shirt from the night before. His ex-wife's sister came in to identify the body. "We need your signature," a nurse whispered, gently placing a clipboard in his hands. Daniel signed without reading. His hands shook. That evening, the official statement came from the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office. A 6-year-old boy was fatally injured in a domestic incident involving an unlicensed exotic animal. The crocodile was euthanized on site by law enforcement. The investigation remains ongoing. That was it. No names, no context, no answers, just a headline. Pet crocodile kills Florida boy in family home. The backlash came fast. TV anchors grilled wildlife experts. Animal control officials were called to press conferences. Talk shows debated crocodile brain chemistry like it was national security. And Daniel? He was nowhere to be found. He shut down the YouTube channel, took the videos offline, deleted his personal social media accounts. Ethan went to stay with his aunt in Tallahassee. The only sign Daniel was still in town came a week later, at a quiet funeral held at St. Paul's Church. No cameras were allowed, no live stream, just a small wooden casket, a few family members, and one broken man staring into space. Lucas loved dinosaurs, the pastor said softly. He believed in gentle giants. He trusted without fear. Daniel wept through the whole service. So did Ethan, gripping his brother's favorite plush T-Rex. Outside the church, opinion was split. Some held candles, mourning a child taken too soon. Others, animal rights activists, concerned parents, even strangers, held up signs that read, "Crocodiles aren't pets." This wasn't an accident. It was negligence. Wild means wild. TV crews captured every angle. Cable news debated the question for days. Was Daniel Morell a grieving father or a reckless one? By the end of the month, state lawmakers introduced a new proposal, Lucas's Law. The bill sought to ban private ownership of crocodilians, alligators, crocodiles, caimans within residential zones. This was preventable, said Representative Mary Klein, who co-sponsored the bill. We failed a child because our laws didn't stop a father from keeping a predator as a pet. The bill passed unanimously in the State House just 2 months later. But laws couldn't bring back Lucas. In a rare public statement, Daniel finally spoke out through a letter read by his attorney. "I loved my son more than anything in this world. I thought I could control nature. I was wrong. I will carry that pain for the rest of my life." He wasn't charged with a crime. Authorities deemed it a tragic accident. But in the court of public opinion, the verdict wasn't so simple. Some saw a heartbroken father who made a terrible mistake. Others saw a man who let his obsession blind him to danger. Weeks later, a mural appeared at the local playground, Lucas's face painted beside a giant blue brontosaurus. Beneath it, a line read, "In memory of the boy who believed monsters could be friends." In the months that followed, the Morell house stood silent. The once lively backyard where Ethan used to ride his scooter and Lucas would throw plastic dinosaurs into the pool was now overgrown with weeds. The pool had been drained, the enclosure dismantled. No laughter echoed off the fence anymore. Daniel never returned to teaching. The YouTube channel Reptile Dad remained wiped clean. Just a blank profile picture and a single word in the bio, offline. But the story didn't fade. Lucas's Law passed statewide and began gaining attention in other states too. Animal sanctuaries saw a rise in calls from private owners looking to surrender exotic pets, monkeys, snakes, even small cats. For some, the lesson was clear. Wild animals don't belong in family homes. But others asked harder questions. Where do we draw the line between love and control? Can the bond between human and beast ever override instinct? Ethan, now living with his aunt, joined grief counseling and stopped drawing crocodiles. Instead, he began sketching outer space, stars, rockets, empty planets. When asked about his brother, he'd quietly say, Lucas wanted to be a paleontologist. He loved things with teeth. At the memorial playground mural, someone had added a quote in chalk. He thought even monsters deserved a friend. A small nonprofit was formed in Lucas's name, the Buddy Project, an outreach initiative focused on educating kids and families about wildlife boundaries, exotic pet risks, and the difference between admiration and ownership. At their first school assembly, they showed a picture of Lucas holding up his stuffed dino and smiling next to the pool. The speaker didn't sensationalize. He didn't use the word attack. He just said, sometimes love isn't enough. Sometimes respect means letting wild things stay wild. As for Daniel, he never gave another interview. But a neighbor reported seeing him months later, sitting at the mural bench at dusk, alone, hands in his pockets, staring at the cartoon brontosaurus beside his son's face. He sat there for over an hour, and as the sun dipped behind the trees, he whispered something no one could quite make out. But maybe it was just, I'm sorry. So now, we turn the question to you, the viewers, the parents, the animal lovers, the dreamers. Do you think love can tame nature? Would you keep an exotic animal if you believed it trusted you? At what point does love become blindness? Comment below and tell us what you think. This story wasn't just about a crocodile or a boy. It was about all of us, our choices, our limits, and our willingness to believe we're in control. Lucas believed in kindness. Daniel believed in connection. But nature never made a promise, and in the end, the thing that tore this family apart wasn't a monster. It was a mistake. If this story moved you, share it. Let others hear Lucas's name. Let his memory change something. Subscribe to Animal Story for more true stories that reveal the complicated, sometimes heartbreaking bond between humans and animals. Because behind every headline, there's a lesson we all need to face.